Here we go. Fuel. Take one and see me in the morning. Here we go.
Oh, I like that last bit. It's like the X-Files.
Exactly. That's the whole idea. When I wrote that song's called Fuel.
Yeah.
I was getting on a train in Paris to go up to Cologne in Germany, and I saw a billboard for Harry Potter World.
Right.
And I started thinking about those cinematic chords and music and that, and that's where I came up with that. I mean, it's as old as Goldfinger, isn't it? Yeah, but it sparked an idea in me, you know.
It's
And
great.
and I was trying to come up with something that had the movement of classical gas, you know,
Yeah.
all those different movements. If you can actually tap time right through the whole thing.
Okay.
Even though the time signatures change, I just keep tapping my foot like this, right? So. And your foot just keeps doing that.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you hadn't already worked it out, I'm super honoured today because Tommy Emmanuel has come by to Guildford to spend a bit of time with us.
Guildford, yes.
Yes,
I found it,
and it's great because you know we love the acoustic guitar, and we don't get enough acoustic guitar players on this channel,
right.
And they don't come really much better than you.
Well, thanks. Well, I work harder than everybody else.
You do.
That's it.
You certainly do. And so, as with all these kind of interviews, it's a sort of a get to know you, talk about know how what early life was like and what it was about the guitar that sort of captured your imagination. But you're an Antipodean sort of
I'm an Aussie boy.
An Aussie boy, you know, and. So if we go back into sort of childhood and stuff, and growing up, what was the music? You have quite a musical family, don't you?
Absolutely. I was one of 6 children. There are 4 of us left because last year we tragically lost my sister and then my brother a month later.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
So it was a tough year. It was also the busiest year of my life. So, and I survived it. But anyway, going back to where we started. I was born in a place called Muswellbrook, which was about 5 hours north west of Sydney, and my father was working in a coal mine in those days. And my mum was crazy about music. My mother could sing, and she could play a few chords on the guitar. In fact, during the Second World War, when my mother was a teenager, she would go to the train station in the city of Brisbane, where all the soldiers they had to go through there to get the train north to go to get training, you know, in the Air Force and the Navy, and they all trained up there. So my mother used to take her guitar to the train station and sing songs to the soldiers as they left.
Great.
Yeah. So, you know, my mother loved good songs and good music. And so ever since I was a baby, there was music around me all the time. My mother told me that it was the only time I would settle down is when there was music playing. Other than that, I was screaming my lungs out or something, you know. And then when I was able to walk around, or I was old enough to walk, she would put the washing in the washing machine and pull the handle, and I would come running down the hallway so I could dance with the washing machine. I was hypnotized by groove. So she knew something was going on with me.
What were they listening to? What kind of stuff were they listening to?
We were listening to country music, gospel music, rock and roll music. Mum played Jimmy Rogers, Hank Williams, Hank Snow, Marty Robbins, Jim Reeves,
right?
All that kind of music.
Yeah.
And there, of course, there was a lot of wartime songs that people always sung, like "We'll Meet Again" and stuff like that. And there was a lot of English music. There was, you know, the Beatles and Herman's Hermits and all that sort of stuff. But my earliest influences was country music, bluegrass music, gospel music, and then R&B a little bit later. Yeah. You know, I guess I was fascinated with the guitar right from the beginning. So when I was 4 years old, my mother gave me a guitar for my birthday, and my closest brother Phil, he's a couple of years older than me, because I got a guitar, he had to have one. And then he insisted on being the lead guitar player and made me the rhythm guy. So that's how I started in my musical life, was as a rhythm player. Yeah. Right? And I highly recommend to people out there, if you're taking up the guitar, learn a lot of chords and learn a lot of songs in a lot of keys, and learn how to be a good accompanist. Yeah. There's more work for a good accompanist than a lousy lead player. Okay, so learn some good songs and some good chords. But if I can explain this to you, Lee, the way I'm wired, I've never had any training. We never went to schools. I don't read music. I play everything by ear, right? So I'm the Indiana Jones of the guitar world, ladies and gentlemen. When I teach at Berklee College of Music, I'm the only person in the room who can't read music, and I'm the instructor. Strange, isn't it? But anyway, so the way I heard things, I wasn't aware that there was a bass guitar. So I thought the rhythm player did the bass part. So there's the bass, the rhythms. This is what I heard. So I'm learning all these songs by the Shadows, a great English band. And I'm working out how to play the rhythm so my brother can go. He's playing that part and I'm going. So we already sound half like a band. And then my eldest brother joined in on the drums. And so the three of us sounded like four people because I was covering the bass part. But I didn't know that was anything special. I was just trying to get the sound that I heard on the record, right? So fast forward a couple of years, and we'd been playing at band contests and playing in churches and playing for free, just getting out there and getting some playing going, you know. And we got booked on this show, and we played about 15 minutes, and then we came off, and then this next band came on, and they had, you know, a Fender Strat and a Gibson something, and then this other electric guitar with 4 strings on it. And I said, "What's that guitar with 4 strings?" And the guy said, "Well, that's the bass." And I said, "What's the bass?" And then they started, and I had one of those, oh, now I know what that is. But it was, we didn't need a bass player, I was covering it. And I was 6 years old and I knew how to do that. I can't explain that, but that's, when you're looking for a sound and you're very determined like I am, you'll keep going until you get it. It's as simple as that. Nothing's going to stop you from getting it if you really want it, you know.
What was the story about your dad taking all of you out of school and taking you on the road at quite an early age?
Well, there was a guy in Australia named Col Joy who was like the Elvis of Australia, and he was the most popular singing star. Yeah. And he had a band called the Joy Boys, and they were, you know, it was like Cliff Richard and the Shadows, and that it was Col Joy and the Joy Boys. And anyway, he came to our town to play in the town hall, and my dad went down and begged him to come and hear his kids play. So, you know, him and his band came round to our house, and we were set up in the lounge room, and we played for them.
Amazing.
Yeah, and Cole said to my dad, "These kids have talent. The public should hear them," and, you know, all that sort of stuff. So that was very encouraging. We won a couple of band contests, and we won a TV appearance. And I was 6 years old, and I remember it was the weirdest day of my life because my dad, who was a very strict man, was telling me to lie.
Right.
Yeah, because in those days the law was that you couldn't go on TV unless you were 7 years old. 7 was the youngest. So I looked about 3 as it was, you know. I was a skinny little blonde kid, if you can imagine that. And so all the way to the TV station, my dad saying, "Now you're 7 years old. If anybody asks you, you're 7. You know, but I'm 6, Dad. And no, you're 7. Anyway, thankfully, nobody asked. But we did our spot on this show. It was like 6 o'clock rock or something like that, you know. My brother played Hank Marvin's part, and Brilliant. I played Bruce Welch's and Jet Harris's part at the same time while learning 2 Oriental languages. And anyway, So we finished our spot, and there happened to be an American television producer who was out in Australia, just kind of seeing how we did things, and being what do you call it, a consultant.
Right.
He came straight up to my dad and said, "These kids have talent. The public need to see them," and all that, right? So I think that kind of set a fire under my dad, and we sold up the house and bought 2 cars and a tent, and away we went. We were the Emmanuel Quartet on the road, 1961. You know?
That's insane. Like Australia's almost version of the Jackson 5 or something.
Yeah, well, you know, kind of thing. But we were an instrumental act, you know. So we needed a singer and a girl singer as well. We needed a male singer and a girl singer to kind of give the show a bit of variety. And so the guy who was our supervisor for school, because we did school on the road, we did what we call correspondence school, where it gets sent in the mail and you pick it up at the post office, you do your week's work, you take it back to the post office, they send it to Sydney, he marks it, you know, and then you get your next week's work. It's all coordinated by the government. And so we did our schooling, and the guy who was our supervisor sang a bit like Johnny Cash. So he was part of the show. And then there was a young lady who could sing pretty well, and she sang gospel tunes and Hawaiian songs and stuff like that. And she helped my mum out with the little kids. And so we were a traveling unit, you know. And we pretty quickly went broke.
Right.
And
this is the bad part of the story.
Well, no, it's the learning part. You know, and it was early 60s in Australia. The roads were pretty bad. The cars were primitive. You know, they were always breaking down and boiling and getting tire blowouts and wearing out bearings and all that stuff. You know, but we were very happy on the road. My mother cooked on an open fire all the time. We washed our clothes in the river, you know, stuff like that, you know, that you just don't do anymore, you know. We slept under the stars all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm sure it was tough, but I mean, it sounds like just such a sort of romantic vision of kind of, you know, being on the road and playing guitar with your family as well.
Well, exactly. A normal day for us when I was like 7 years old would be, we would wait till lunchtime, and then we would go down to the local music store or electrical goods store, set up our amps and drums and stuff, and play really loud in there and draw a crowd. And then my father would say, "And we're playing in the town hall tonight. Don't miss it. Get a ticket," and blah blah blah. And he'd be trying to sell a refrigerator to an Eskimo, you know. And then at 3:30, when kids are coming out of school, we would play in the hall, and the kids would come and poke their head in and have it and go home and tell their parents about it, and that's how we got a crowd. That's what it was like. Because I was so young, I would only play the first half of the show. So in the first half of the show, we would open with like 4 instrumentals. My brother playing lead, me playing rhythm, my eldest brother playing drums, and my sister playing fills and stuff underneath. And then she would play some songs on the lap steel. And then there'd be a couple of vocal tunes. Then my father would come out and tell a few stories. And then he'd start bragging about me. And then it was my turn, and I would play, you know, guitar boogie or something like that as the lead player. And then I would play my sister's lap steel. And then I would play Wipeout on the drums, you know, and all that stuff. And then that would be the first half of the show. And 10 minutes later, I'd be out the back
to go to bed.
On the back seat of where I lived was the back seat of my dad's car. That was my room.
I think it's just such a wonderful story. But so how long did the family do that for then?
Until Dad died in 1966.
Okay.
Yeah, he was only 49.
Wow.
But he had a heart disease, which I've inherited. But I live in an age where we have good medicine. That's why I'm still.
So you were only 10 or 11 at this point then?
It was just before my 11th birthday.
Oh man, that's tough.
Yeah. And, well, you know, in hindsight, it's never easy losing your father. But in hindsight, it would have been a lot harder for me if I was 18 or 20, you know. And because I remember that period in my life where I was starting to make a name for myself in the big city. I'd moved to Sydney, and I was getting a lot of work, and I was really kind of achieving a lot. And always in the back of my mind is, I wonder what Dad would think if he saw me now, you know. So, and I still think about that sometimes, but I'm Dad now, and I love being Dad. You know?
Well, you're immensely proud, I would imagine your dad would have been, because it's obviously what he wanted for you, and
exactly.
know, to make some sort of a living out of playing music,
right?
And you've done exactly that.
If I could go back and talk to that young person that I used to be and tell him, you're not going to believe what's going to happen to you. You would never believe it. In my lifetime, I've got to know just about all my heroes: Les Paul, Chet Atkins, Dwayne Eddy, James Burton, Albert Lee. You name it. I've met them all. The people who showed us the way, and that's a lucky life, you know.
For sure.
And I got to record with my hero Chet Atkins. And I'm living my childhood dream, driving all those long hours in the outback of Australia, literally dreaming about playing the theatres that I play. You know, I get to play Royal Festival Hall in London, you know, and I go out and play with just my guitar and me. That's a dream come true. It didn't come easy, but I got there, you know, because I had a vision.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, especially those who don't have enough confidence in themselves, they lack that vision of, you know, because I always say, where do you see yourself? Well, I don't know. Well, there's the problem. You know, I saw myself there. I just didn't know how I was going to get there, you know? And so when I was young, I knew I wanted to be there. I was a concert player, and I'm going to write my own songs and all that. I just didn't have a clue how I was going to do that. And it just slowly unfolded, and it's still unfolding.
So if we go back to your teenage years, obviously, you know, huge shock to lose your dad so young. But presumably the sort of family unit sticks together. And at what point did you sort of feel like, you know, I need to fly the nest now and go and do my thing? And
well, the family band kind of disintegrated not long after Dad died, because my sister went off and got married and had children, and so we got hauled off the road by the government body called the Child Welfare Department.
Oh, okay.
We were forced off the road and into normal schools, because they didn't believe we were getting a proper education. Of course, they were wrong, but we had to abide by that law. So we settled in a town called Parkes in New South Wales, and we went to school there. And Phil and I had a band, a local band called the Trailblazers, and we used to play weddings, parties, you name it, dances and all that. And we played in sort of like RSL clubs. They were like returned soldiers clubs, where they've got a hall, or they've got a room with a stage, and they're over here's the poker machines, and in there's the restaurant, and they're the bar, and people get up and dance and all that. We played those kind of places to make a living and support our mother, and keep a roof over the family, because after Dad died, we were always the breadwinners, you know, and we still are. And and whenever I'm teaching a class, like a master class, I always tell the students, I'm an example to you of someone who makes a living playing the guitar. I don't do anything else, right? My family depend on me. I got mortgage like everybody else, car payment like everybody else. All my kids have got to be educated and go through school and college and all that. So I better have it together, you know? So I try to take that kind of a practical approach, you know? But I mean, I could sit here and talk all day about technique and the beauty of music and how hard it is to write a song. I could talk about that all day too, you know?
But if you want to be successful, it's both, isn't it?
It's everything.
You can't be.
And it's way beyond the guitar. It's a higher calling than just playing the guitar. There are a million great guitar players out there, guys who can play rings around me, but I can write a song and I can tell you a story and change your day.
Yeah,
and that's my job.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah. So you've obviously, I guess, even from a really young age, life was always going to be about making a living out of playing guitar.
Yeah.
But when you finally, you know, went out on your own, Phil presumably went off and did he carry on being a musician?
Phil and I worked as a duo in the 80s, and then occasionally in the 90s, and then I had a lot of success with my own albums in my home country of Australia, and Phil kind of followed suit and started releasing his own albums, and every now and again we'd get a chance to get back together.
Is he stylistically similar to you? Is it?
No, he's very different.
Right.
Yeah, he was more your kind of heavy rock player.
Okay.
And although when him and I played stuff that we'd worked out together, it was like the two of us became one, you know. And when he passed away last year, I kind of made this statement that I lost my irreplaceable. He's my irreplaceable partner, my other self.
Yeah.
And as much as I love playing with other players, and I have some great people that I love working with, but there's something special about playing with your sibling.
Yeah.
That especially you know, when we get going on stage, we could read each other's mind. I knew exactly what he wanted next, and he'd always let me know somehow, you know, and I'd always be watching him, and sometimes I'd be reeling him in, and sometimes I'd be letting him go and following him, you know. So but my main thing was I fell in love with songwriting when I was young, and I think I wrote probably 20 years of forgettable music, you know. That's why I don't play it, because I forgot it. But things started to stick once I did enough listening and learning. You know, this is the thing that young people write to me. They see me on YouTube or they go to my shows, and 90% of the show is my original songs, and so they try to write songs like that, and then they get frustrated and they write to me and they say, I'm trying to write songs like you, but they're all crap, you know. I said, well, how old are you? I'm 16. Well, I don't wonder that they're crap. You haven't done anything yet. You've got to listen. Our job as a musician is to listen and take all that information in. You can't put anything out without taken in first, you know, and you got to be really patient with songwriting. Sometimes, you know, you just wait for something to happen to cause you to write. You know, like the song I played earlier, I wrote that because I saw that Harry Potter thing, and I started thinking about these cinematic chords. But then I had time. I had 4-hour train trip, and I wrote that song and practiced it up and played it that night in Germany, right? And there's a lot in that song, so I had to practice it and practice it and practice it. But I used all my skills to write that song, to see where the music wanted to go, and how I could make it interesting and all that sort of stuff. But there are other songs I've written, like, for instance, there's a song called Lewis and Clark. And Lewis and Clark were really only Americans know much about them. They were the explorers and sent by President Thomas Jefferson to explore the American West and find what was out there so they could inhabit it, basically. And what they found were the native people were already there, you know. And so when I read the journals of Lewis and Clark, it put me in that place of inspiration. I had a great idea to write about. You know, I had a story and an emotion, and the whole thing was like, and I saw the movie in my head. Right? So I thought, this has got to be simple. It's got to speak of the native people. It's got to speak of the American West, the prairies, the rivers, the mountains, the wide open spaces, and the great unknown. So how do I do that? Okay, so I started with some moving chords. It's already sounding like it's going somewhere, right? said the verse. So it's setting up the story.
You can visualize it
Totally,
completely.
Yeah. And so I've got this going. I'm happy. I'm chilling up, playing it, you know. And each time I get to the chorus, where now this is the big moment. This is the payoff, the chorus. Each time I got to there, nothing was coming, and everything I tried to manufacture, so to speak, and throw at it was not working. And see, there's two songwriters inside me. There's one up here who's very clever and who has a million ideas and will keep throwing them at me.
Yeah.
But there's one down here that must be satisfied. Yeah. This is the one that wins, right? Because I don't do stuff to impress musicians. I have a much higher calling than that. And so I need to be satisfied in my soul when I play music and write it, right?
Yeah.
So eventually I pushed it and pushed it and pushed it, and then I said, that's it. This part's right and I know it, but I've got to get the right chorus, otherwise it's not worth it. So I put the guitar down and went to bed. I got up really early, 5:45 or something. Sun was coming up, and I was on this lake. I was in a little motel right on the lake, and I walked out in the veranda, and I got a different view. I got a view from the native people's perspective, and when I thought of that, this phrase came to me: "If you bring your love with you, if you bring your love with you, we'll welcome you. If you're coming to take our land, then you're in for a fight." You know what I mean? So "if you bring your love with you" had a melody with it. And I grabbed my guitar. There it is. If you bring your love with you. So that was all working for me. Then I played the verse, chorus, double chorus, and out. And I thought, it's kindergarten. It's so simple. And then I had to battle this guy up here going, it's too simple, it's too simple. And this guy in here saying, just be quiet. It's there, you know? And it became one of my most popular songs, yet one of the simplest things I've ever written, you know? But it just has everything that my instincts tell me it needs. And so I don't try to be clever and push it. I just let it be, as Paul McCartney would say, just let it be, you know? So... in order to get that thing of constant motion, we have the constant movement of chords, right? And then you got that native sound. And I just do that by flicking my thumb upwards like that. The other thing I wanted to point out is I didn't realize this is a technical thing, but not everybody can do that.
Oh, okay.
With their knuckle, you see. And if you can't do...
Oh, wow, you're playing the... Wow.
So there are some people who are trying to move a position
second finger,
to play that. And a couple of people said, we really love Lewis and Clark, but we can't play it because we can't do that.
I'm intrigued with, you are predominantly known as an instrumentalist.
Yeah.
And I'm intrigued about what was the journey between, was there some frustration at the beginning that you're sort of, that you weren't writing songs that you were singing over, or were you just naturally going, I never wanted to do that?
No, I had plenty of negativity around me to charge me on, kind of thing. You know what I mean? I had record companies saying, we don't know how to market you, and we've heard you sing, why don't you blah, 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 why don't you be a singer-songwriter like everybody else? Then you can be a star. And it's like, now I've got to do what I believe I'm supposed to do deep inside. This is my voice.
Yeah.
I get away with singing because I can, but I'm not really a singer. But I mostly listen to singers, I don't sit. People think that a guitar player spends all his time studying other guitar players. Nothing could be further from the truth. I don't care about other guitar players so much, I'm learning songs from singers, I want to learn how to write a song. So I listen to people who write great songs. Stevie Wonder, Billy Joel, Elton John, Eric Clapton, you name it. I've listened to everybody from Mozart to Beethoven to Metallica to Bonnie Raitt. I listen to all kinds of music, and I think you've got to have an open attitude about that and take it all in. Let it all come into you. A normal day for me when I'm home is I'll get up and I'll put on Stevie Ray Vaughan or something. And then I'll switch to Aretha Franklin. Then I'll switch to Michael Jackson, and just keep taking in good song after good song after good song. You know, I couldn't have written a tune like Lewis and Clark if I hadn't really studied James Taylor and Gordon Lightfoot. People whose music moves the world. That's what I want to do. I'm not interested in winning a reader's poll or being, touted as the greatest anything. I'm interested in helping changing the world with whatever I have. And
I think it was that I was more coming from an angle. I can completely understand that. Being an instrumentalist is a much more niche market than being a singer-songwriter. So I can understand commercially why record companies would be going, come on, Tommy, sing something.
But what you've got to do is you've got to build an audience yourself. No one's going to do it for you. You've got to get out there and do it. People think, oh, Tommy Emmanuel plays all these places because he's got a great agent and he's got a great management and blah, blah, blah. Do you know how hard it was to get those people? Do you know how hard I had to work just to get the attention of an agent? He had to see, because agents and management are looking at figures of who's drawing a crowd every day. So you start to get in. Oh, he's consistently drawing 600 people. He's consistently drawing 1,000 people. Who is this guy? You know what I mean? I had to do that by hand. I had to keep coming back, and this is the difference between me and most of the other people. They're not willing to work that hard, and they're not willing to keep coming back because it takes too much sacrifice. And that's the truth. It's a lot of sacrifice. And I have paid a high price for it with being away from my family. I understand that. But I feel that when I play, something really wonderful happens to people. I don't know what it is. It's not me, but it's something that happens when I play. And so I feel it's my job and my destiny and my calling to get out and play and give everything I can. And I try to do that. And I always tell people, if you don't give those people 110%, then get out of the way and let me out there. You know what I mean? That's my attitude.
So you've been successfully touring as a solo artist now for... It's going to be more than 30 years, isn't it? 30 to 40 years.
Oh, yeah, 40 years at least. Yeah.
So, I mean, over that time, and what have you felt stylistically? How have you kind of changed? And
well, I hope I've grown.
Yeah,
and I think I've got comfortable with just being myself out there, and I I can still remember the fear of slipping one of my original songs into a set where people come to see me play Beatles stuff and classical gas and all that, which I still love to play. I only play music that I think is good, you know, that I think people are going to love and have a great time. And I always play too much, you know. You know what I mean? I mean, I walk the line of, you know, when I play guitar boogie, I play a ridiculous amount of music, and I go off and do whatever I want. It's totally self-indulgent, but all that stuff is what the crowd love to see. You know, if I was going to see a guitar player, say, you know, I would expect him to give me his bone marrow, you know, give me everything. And if you blow my mind, I'll be the first to buy a ticket and come back and see you. You know, I remember the first time I saw George Benson, he blew my mind, but he totally satisfied me in the first song.
Yeah.
He played so much in the first tune, you know, that you just, your jaw was going to drop on the ground. And so I try to do a bit of everything. I try to surprise my audience, because surprise equals entertainment, right? So I say stuff that they don't expect, like, you know, the next song I have played in front of the Prince of Wales, the Duke of Edinburgh, and many other pubs, you know, stuff like that, where you take the mickey out of yourself, you know, and you know, and I try to play my original songs and tell stories and entertain people with, well, whatever I have, you know. That's why I play with a brush and bang my head on the microphone, because no one else does that, and it's something different to do, you know. It's all in the name of entertainment.
It's cool. You've collaborated with some wonderful artists in your career. Has there been, you know, are there one or two highlight stories, or maybe, you know, stories that people might not have heard?
Obviously recording with Chet Atkins in the early days was, you know, I still look at that and go, did that really happen? It was amazing, you know. But my previous album, Accomplice One, I had Mark Knopfler, Ricky Skaggs, Rodney Crowell, Susie Boggess, Amanda Shires, Jerry Douglas, Frank Vignola. There's so many good players, all different genres, you know. And it was recorded, some of the stuff we did when I was down in Cuba, some we did in Nashville, some we did here in England. Clive Carroll and I did a duet, and I went to Mark Knopfler's studio so Mark and I could do a song together. And it was just a joy to make. It was serendipity, you know, everything came together.
Yeah.
And I've just been recording a new album, which is 26 original songs, a double album.
Wow.
The album's going to be called Tommy Songs, you know. And I was very inspired by Reedology and stuff like that. When Jerry Reed had a song called Reedology, and I thought, his name is in that word, and Reedology describes the uniqueness of what he's doing. That doesn't sound like anybody. That's Reedology. So I thought, well, my songs are unique to me, so I had to find a word that would describe that. So Tommy Songs as one word kind of thing. So all original songs.
That's amazing. Should we talk a little bit about gear? I mean,
we can. This is my main touring guitar. I usually carry 3 on the road.
Right.
This one, all 3 of them are Maton guitars made in Australia, and they're all individual. You know, they were made for me, but they're also experimental guitars. And this one has a smaller sound hole, and it's thinner that way.
So, have you always been more of a, you know, like a triple O kind of body style, or would you, you know, is there?
I started out with like a dreadnought with a cutaway, which was a Maton as well. I started on Takamine. You know,
I remember the Takamine adverts actually with you in them.
Yeah, that's right. Well, they were the only guitar that had a decent pickup.
Yeah,
you know, and those pickups still stand up today. You know, Takamine made great pickups.
Yeah,
and so in those days, in the late 70s. Takamine came to me and showed me the very latest thing, with the things here, and you put the 12-volt battery in here and all that.
They haven't changed much in 40 years, have they?
But you see, that's because it works.
Because it worked, yeah.
So I had a deal with Bose as well. So I used to have the Takamine, and I'd have a EV entertainer desk, one of those Tapco with the graphic in it, and I would do my own mix and everything from on stage, and I played through a Bose PA.
Yeah.
So that enhanced the acousticness of the pickup anyway, playing through Bose. Right? So I was playing rock gigs in pubs around Sydney and Melbourne in the late 70s, solo acoustic on Saturday night to 500 bikers, just pounding the hell out of this guitar, playing everything as loud, as hard, as fast as I could. That was my kind of training ground for what I'm doing now. I'm a concert player now. Back then I was in the trench. I was at war with the audience, trying to get better, And so the Takamine was by far the best plug in and play type guitar. And then Maton came to me, and I've always liked Maton guitars. My first good guitar, which is in the museum at the Maton factory, I got in 1960. That guitar still plays beautiful.
I didn't realise Maton went back that far.
They go back to 1946.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's a great Australian company, and they're one of the bigger brands now that don't build guitars in Korea and China. They still make guitars in Australia, and that's how it is. So I had the Takamine, and it was kind of cutaway dreadnought, and I played that for a long time. It recorded pretty well acoustically as well. But then when Maton eventually came up with the AP5 pickup and mic system, that revolutionized everything. I plugged it in, and I just said to them, this is what I've been waiting for all my life,
Yeah.
Plug this in, and then of course I got hooked up with AER amps from Germany, and that there was the perfect coupling of a guitar and an amp together. And all of a sudden we were off and running, and be able to plug that amp into any PA and get a sound like that. I can turn up, plug in, like I do. Last week I did the Opry in the Grand Ole Opry in Nashville, and we did 2 shows in one night, and I just turned up with my amp. They plugged the XLR in the back, turned it on. Okay, good, thanks. That was my sound check. Sounds great. Got it in the monitors, got it in the house, set everything flat, sounded great.
Well, that's what you want, isn't it?
That's what you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what was it about the slightly more compact guitar size over a dreadnought that appealed to you?
I just liked it, and
The feel of it, or the sound, or both?
Both. Yeah. I mean, I do have some beautiful dreadnoughts. I have a Martin D28, and I have a Koa Martin, a Hawaiian Koa,
which we saw. It's beautiful as well.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't use them on stage. I only have them at home, or I've got a Gibson J45 that I love. I've got every color of the palette of an acoustic guitar that you can imagine.
Yeah.
I've got a beautiful Larrivee. I have a pre-war, which is a handmade guitar, which is a replica of a...
Oh, I think I saw them at last year's Nashville NAMM, I think.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. The guys from pre-war were there.
Very cool.
I have a replica of a 30s 0028 Martin.
Yeah.
That is Brazilian rosewood. The wood's been baked and stressed.
Yeah.
And that guitar sounds unbelievable.
We have an English builder that's a similar vibe, Ratkin.
I played one of his guitars last time I was in your store here.
It's a similar kind of vibe, trying to recreate all those pre-war kind of Gibsons and Martins.
And it's wonderful, and it's great to hear that sound.
Yeah.
The funny thing about Martins and Gibsons and those tried and true brands that have been around a long time, every now and again you'll pick one up and it'll be just better than all the rest of them.
Yeah.
And that's just how it is. Yeah. I went to the factory in Montana, to the Gibson factory, and I bought 2 J45s. I played about 8 of them, and I brought 2, one for a friend of mine in Germany and one for me, because I wanted that sound, and it's a very close sound to some of Merle Travis's records,
right,
and Hank Williams. Right. I had that guitar for 12 years. And I walked into the Guitar Center in Franklin, outside of Nashville, and there was a brand new J45 on the wall with a bit more ornate headstock with the Grover head.
It's just a J45 Deluxe, I think, isn't
Exactly.
it? Just like the rosewood back and side. Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't rosewood. It's mahogany.
Oh, is it the J45? Maybe it's a different. Maybe it was just like a custom J45. Anyway, okay.
Anyway, tobacco sunburst.
Yeah.
You know, the bridge around the other way and all that. And I took it off the wall. It's brand new out of the box.
Yep.
It sounded like it was from the 40s. I mean, and I said, this is my guitar, and I traded my one that I bought at the factory, traded it in and bought that one because that one was so much better. And it's just, you just get lucky. Every now and again you'll find a guitar and you'll go, it's my guitar, you know.
That's great.
Maton guitars, this is like my voice. It's just such a reliable instrument. I can plug in and get a sound anywhere. Stick a mic on it and it sounds great.
Yeah.
So you know, I have this one, which is always in normal tuning, and then I have another one with a cutaway, which is slightly wider, and I use that for drop D and drop G songs. And then the third one is a wider body again, the same size as this, but like that. And I have 13 to 56 on it, and I tune it down a whole step. So it's a whole different tone.
It's like a fatter kind of thing.
And I use more mid-range in it and all that. And I play like ballads and songs where I use a lot of harmonics and stuff. You know, like let me give your viewers a little tip here. When I'm playing a show and I want to go into something like Somewhere Over the Rainbow or whatever like that, first thing I do, so I don't hear that. When you're playing harmonics, you might get that. So I turn the mic off. Right. So that sound now doesn't come out the PA, and then I bring the mid range up. So when and I'm using reverb. So when I go to play, in order to get those harmonics, I poke the mid-range out like that, but I play gently. So. So there's no extraneous noises, and when I hit the harmonic, they just jump out because of the mid-range, right? But it's not a sound that you would use because it's kind of harsh, right? But if you're playing gently, it's sweet.
I must say, you're watching you do that and then thinking back to the old sort of Chet Atkins, the showmanship bit of it. I don't mean... And it's showmanship in a very sort of old-fashioned way, isn't
exactly,
it? Exactly,
yeah.
And it's so lovely to see.
It's the Marx Brothers, you know.
Yeah.
Watching Chico go with his finger.
Yeah.
You know, people love that stuff.
It's really cool.
And it's fun, and it's a way of saying, I like a laugh too.
Yeah.
You know, I'm very serious about this, but I'm not taking myself like I'm a what do you call it? A self-contained, self-absorbed artist. I'm using these things to entertain you.
Yeah.
See, when I went bing and like that, you laughed.
Yeah, that's exactly. And
multiply that by 1,000 people.
Yeah,
it
was that moment where I thought that is the sort of thing that the guitarists of that Chet Atkins kind of era used to do. It was anyway. It was there was another cool trick that you had. Now we plugged into the Compact 60, which I think everyone in Andertons, and yourself, it's always been our favourite acoustic guitar. But you absolutely rightly said, I think most people, when they have an acoustic guitar amp, they get it on stage and they either point it at the audience or they point it at themselves.
They put it up on a stand.
On a stand.
Everything's wrong about that.
So tell us again, if we can get a look at the camera on whether we're in a not massive room, but like a sort of studio live roomy kind of vibe.
The first thing you got to do is leave the amp on the floor. That's where all the bass comes from. That's where the big sound comes from, right? Set everything flat. Don't use the bright switch. Just set everything flat and start there. Get the amp to sound good on the floor. Get the bass right and all that sort of stuff. And don't point the amp at the audience, because by the time that little speaker has thrown sound forward, it's like a point. It starts to thin out after about 6 feet, A Fender Twin's the same. It'll give you a haircut at 10 paces. It's so pointy, So you take the line out of the back of it and put that straight into the PA. Now, walk forward, get the sound man to turn you up and have a listen. See what it's like, because most guitar players make the mistake of getting their sound how they like it on stage, and they're not even aware of what's going on, what the public hear. And that's the most important thing. For me, I always get the sound I like in the room, in the hall, in the PA and everything. Get that first. Then think about how you want it on stage,
But this idea of spinning it round was to fill out the room reflections. It bounces the sound around, and the sound gets bigger. And it's, when I'm teaching, say if we were in a room 3 times as big as this and we had 60 people sitting in chairs, they're going to absorb all the sound. And so what I do is I'll find a surface and bounce the sound around the room to them. It makes sense. It makes total sense. Do you do the same with an electric guitar amplifier? Or is it a very acoustic
turn it round.
Same thing?
Yeah, don't point the speakers at the audience.
Well, there we go. It's where we're all doing it wrong, everybody.
No, it's the way to go. Get a microphone in this. Here's the speaker cone. Get the microphone down here and point it, but don't point it in the middle. That's only treble in there. Point it at the outside like that. And if you've got an amp that has an open back or whatever, stick a mic in the back as well. And that's a great sound. I used to use the Twin, the one with the red knobs. And I had a baffle at the front, right? And so the amp would be facing that way towards the audience, but it's baffled off. And I got a mic there, and then I got a mic at the back, and I would favour the back mic for the monitors coming at me. So it almost sounded like a Marshall Quad.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and you bring the master back, pull out the channel switch, so it's just going into driving it, and that's where you run it. Then you just add your extra distortion from your pedal.
I do think that the DI on the AER just makes. I think piezo pickups on acoustic guitars can be quite notoriously difficult to get a nice. But the DI from this is just superb. It's almost you can plug anything into that. It just sounds great.
This piezo pickup is, when you just heard it.
Yeah, I think that sounds great. I really do.
I'll turn the mic off. That's just the
very
piezo
natural,
pickup. So then you bring. Here's the microphone on its own. Then
it's almost the other way around to how on other systems I've heard that the mic is what brings in the fatness and the piezo is the brighter, more jingly sort of sound.
most people don't cover the whole for a start. That's a big mistake.
Yeah.
If the idea is to get the most out of the mic and the most out of the pickup, so cover the hole and crank it up. You know, I use everything on 10. That's how I get the sound. You put that in the PA, and when you're in the audience, it feels like your head is inside my guitar. So that's a good thing to remember, you know. Wow. And when I'm looking at the audience, I'm trying to make a connection with them. Doesn't matter how far away they are. I look up at them and I wave and I play to them. And I play to the people over here and the people up here, you know. And so we all feel like one. And that's a great desire of mine to reach people, you know.
Right. And testament, I think, to how you've managed to have such a long-standing, successful career, because it is all about giving the paying customer some sort of experience that they'll want to do again and again.
Exactly. You know? Yeah. What as a player and an artist, what you want to hear at the end of the night is not how good you played or blah blah blah. What you want to hear is, when are you coming back? That's what you want to hear.
Yes, can I buy a CD and when are you coming back?
Exactly, yeah. Because you know you want to come back.
For sure.
And it's a good job. It's good to have work to look forward to. Yeah. You know? And
what does because you mentioned before we started rolling that you still think you're doing 300 odd dates a year?
Yeah, well, I tried slowing down and I'm no good at it, you know. I'm a road dog. I need to play and I need to feel like I'm improving. If I feel like I'm treading water, it just doesn't work for me.
That's something I think a lot of great guitarists, there's a similar trait there, that it's not a born natural talent, it's an innate desire to be better.
Exactly.
You know, I think that comes across, I think, a lot. So tell us, you know, when's this Tommy Songs album?
It comes out. It'll be out in the new year.
Excellent.
At the moment, I have an album out called Heart Songs, which is duets with my friend John Knowles, and I just recorded with Barry Gibb a couple of days ago in Nashville. Barry's doing a beautiful album of all his songs. And I got to play on How Deep Is Your Love, and then he came in.
Didn't sound like that though, did he?
Barry, I don't know how old Barry is, but he still sounds 21 when he sings.
It's such a unique voice, that
isn't
guy.
it? It's beautiful.
And
I've been writing some new songs, and I have the new album coming out, and I'll be touring that next year. But I'll be here in Britain for the transatlantic sessions with Jerry Douglas and the whole crew of Celtic guys.
Well, so, I mean, we've got audience from all over the world, so best place, I guess, to just go and find out about you is TommyEmmanuel.com.
Yeah, and just push on tours and all the dates come up.
You're doing 300 dates a year. I'm sure wherever you live in the world, you should be able to get to see.
Yeah.
It has been such a pleasure having you in.
Oh, thanks.
The music is wonderful to listen to, but the story is just as inspiring.
Well, I could be here all day, so...
Well, and you said, look, honestly, we would have you back any time.
There you go, see? That's what I was waiting
exactly.
for. So shall I finish with another new song?
I think you should, everybody. I know we can't hear you, but please clap your hands and we'll have some sort of global mass
the
YouTube round of
audience
applause.
leapt to its foot. Yeah, hey, the last show I played, the audience went mild. Yeah, and what was the other one? The last place I played, 3 people walked in on me. All right, this is another new song from this new album. This is called A Song for a Rainy Morning. Here we go. Thanks for tuning in.
That's beautiful, man. Beautiful.
Thanks, brother. Thank you.